Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome to worship here at Belhelvie. It's lovely to have you along. If you're visiting with us today, it's particularly good to see you. And we hope that you're able to stay and maybe join us for a tea or coffee after the service, if you're able to. I'm just going to invite you now to take a wee minute and turn to the person that you're sitting beside or the people behind you. If you haven't had a chance to welcome them, just greet them, wish them a good morning. If you don't know them, take a wee minute to find out who they are. It's lovely to see you all. You're all very welcome. We don't want anyone to feel a stranger when they come to join us in worship. It's great to have you all along. We're going to begin our service in the words of number 517. Fight the good fight. Let's worship God together. Let's join our hearts together and pray. Let us pray. Lay hold on life, and it shall be your joy and crown eternally. Loving God, as we meet here this morning, friends and strangers gathered for worship, we want to thank you for the gift of life. Thank you that without our will or design, we came into being. And that from the moment of conception to this very point in time, our lives have been preserved through illness, risks, and danger. We bless you for all that makes life precious to us. Love given freely and accepted gladly. Beauty surrounding us in this wonderful world that you've made. Health enough to get around and do the things that we want to do. The company of friends, the enjoyment of pastimes, pride in a job well done. A deepening sense of connection to you, the God in whom we live and move and have our being. For all these and more, we thank you. We recognize that life isn't always straightforward. Sometimes difficulties and stresses cloud in and hide the sunshine. Sometimes our world shrinks to the size of our problems, making it terribly hard to see beyond them. In those times, Lord, we need a different perspective, an eternal perspective that faith brings. Help us find the still centre within ourselves, where we can keep company with you and realise again that there is always more going on in every situation than we can know, and that you alone know the beginning from the end. You don't give us a way around our problems, but you do promise to help us find a way through them. And it's as we keep company with you, as we focus not just on what's seen, but what's unseen, that we find the courage to keep hopeful in the face of challenging circumstances. Forgive us when our fears and anxieties become more real to us than you are. May you be for us the solid rock on which we stand, the place of rest that we come home to, the strong fortress within which we are kept safe, whatever life tries to throw at us. So hear our prayers, because we ask them all in Christ's name. And in his name we pray together, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Amen. And this next wee section is called Postcard from Smyrna. And if you're visiting this week, just to explain that we're doing a series in the book of Revelation, looking at what's called the letters to the seven churches in Asia Minor that the Apostle John had a strong connection with. And when John's imprisoned in Patmos, the island of Patmos, he writes pastorally to these seven churches to encourage and advise them. We're going to be looking at these over the next few weeks. We looked at Ephesus last week, and this week we're looking at the city of Smyrna. And Smyrna, like Ephesus, was a very ancient and great and cosmopolitan city, and it continues to this day as the city of Izmir in modern Turkey, which is a population of about 4 million people. Smyrna, way back in the ancient world, was still a wealthy and a commercial city, and particularly beautiful in its setting. It was a model of town planning. Like Ephesus, it was a free city. It had been given right to govern itself by Rome, and it was an assize towns, a place where the judiciary would sometimes come and visit to enforce the law. But a main part of its significance in the ancient world was its devotion to the gods. Walking inland from the harbour at Smyrna, you would pass temples to Cybele, Apollo, Asclepios, and Aphrodite, and then about a mile later you would end up at the temple of Zeus, nestling at the foot of the local hills. But Smyrna's main claim to fame was as the centre of Caesar worship. In its heyday, as I'm sure you know, Rome had huge military success across the known world. But one of the problems that brought was how to unify all the different nations that they had conquered. And in time, recognising the benefits that Roman rule had brought them, people throughout the empire came to venerate and eventually worship the Dea Roma, the spirit of Rome. And it was a short step from that to worshipping the visible representative of the spirit of Rome, the emperor. At first the emperors refused this worship, but by the time of the Emperor Domitian, at the end of the 1st century, Caesar worship had become compulsory throughout the Roman Empire. Once a year, every Roman citizen had to burn a pinch of incense on the altar to worship Caesar. And once they'd done that, they were actually issued with a certificate confirming that they had fulfilled their religious duty to the empire. Beyond that, they could worship whoever or whatever they liked, but they had to confess Caesar as Lord at least once a year. If you refused, you wouldn't get your certificate. You'd be branded disloyal and a potential troublemaker. You'd be ostracised in the community. Your business would probably fail because people wouldn't trade with you. People might even think that they were doing the state a favour by persecuting or by killing you. So naturally that was tough for Christians throughout the empire, for whom there only ever could be one Lord, the Christ. And it was especially tough for the Christians in Smyrna. Back in 196 BC, Smyrna had been the first city in the world to build a temple to Dea Roma. They enthusiastically embraced the cult of empire worship. And then in 26 AD, they competed with 6 other cities to build a temple to the Emperor Tiberius, and they were the city who won the honour of doing so. It was dangerous for anybody in the empire to become a Christian. But as the centre of Caesar worship in Asia, it was riskiest of all in Smyrna. And things weren't helped by the fact that the sizable Jewish community in Smyrna were out to make life difficult for the Christians too, some of them. We often forget that Jesus didn't come to start a new religion. He came to reform his own religion. And for a while, the fledgling church led by the apostles existed as a movement within Judaism. But it wasn't long before the Pharisees and their like started turning them out of the temples and the synagogues, especially when non-Jews started to be accepted in the churches. Persecution broke out, and some within the Jewish family were only too happy to work with Rome to see Christians put down. One of the most famous martyrs in the early church was Polycarp, who was the bishop of Smyrna. He was seized by a mob and given the choice to worship Caesar or be burnt at the stake. His biographer records that some of the Jewish leaders led the accusations. This is the teacher of Asia, the father of the Christians, the destroyer of the gods, who teaches many neither to offer sacrifice or to worship. Polycarp refused to sacrifice to Caesar, saying, 86 years have I served Christ. He has never done me wrong. How can I blaspheme my King who has saved me? Come, do your will. Polycarp was martyred in 156 AD, but listening to the letter to the church in Smyrna, it's clear that plenty more before him must have faced persecution. We're going to hear that reading now. Caroline Dan is going to bring it to us. It's Revelation 2, and reading verses 8 to 11. I've asked Caroline to read from the New International Version today.
Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 to 11. To the angel of the church in Smyrna, write, These are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death. Thanks be to God for his reading of his holy word.
Thanks, Caroline. The next hymn is number 536. May the mind of Christ my Saviour.
May
Let's take a minute to pray together now. Let's pray. Father, what a complex, wonderful, and at times terrible world we live in. We don't understand why people do the things that they do to one another. And we just pray this morning that as we gather around your word, around the situation in Smyrna, but also the wider situation in the world in which we live, that you would give us wisdom to know how you would call us to live in the midst of these circumstances. So hear our prayers, because we ask them all in Christ's name. Amen. Years ago, when I was starting out in training as a minister, and on one of my first church placements, the minister that I was working with took me on a tour of his parish in Glasgow. It was just about a quarter of a mile north of streets that I knew very well, but it was so different it might as well have been the Bronx. Derelict tenements, boarded up windows, graffiti and litter everywhere. Young guys hanging around in gangs looking for their next hit, or feeling that their next person to hit. It was just a quarter of a mile off the main thoroughfare, but it was a whole world apart. Smyrna feels like a world apart, doesn't it? All this talk about Christians facing trouble and persecution is kind of hard to relate to for us. But the thing is, it's a lot closer to home than we might know. These things are still happening in our time, if perhaps not in our place. This is Asia Bibi, and back in 2009, Asia got into an argument about drinking water in her village in Pakistan. Some of the Muslim women said that she was using the wrong tap. She was a Christian and she was using their tap. Christians shouldn't be using their tap, they said. Apparently, there was an altercation, and two sisters who were involved in all of this accused Asia of blaspheming the Prophet Muhammad during the argument, something that she consistently denied. But Pakistan has incredibly severe blasphemy laws, and on the basis of that evidence, the mother of five was arrested and put into prison, staying on death row for nearly 10 years. Finally, largely due to international pressure, the charges against her were dropped, and she was acquitted last year, but her release sparked riots from fundamentalists who were demanding her execution. A huge amount of damage was done in several cities by protesters, and a local politician who dared to speak up for Asia was assassinated. Since then, she's been in hiding. Her children have been granted asylum in Canada, and although she's supposedly free to leave Pakistan and join them, she and her husband are currently being held by the government in a safe house in Karachi. It's understood they aren't letting them leave until they commit to saying nothing negative about the regime in Pakistan. Meanwhile, her health is failing, and apparently she's been denied medical care. Just one story. Just one story going on in our world today, and we're going to hear another one later on. It's about the gentleman in the middle of the picture behind you. His name's Matthew Ayerga, and we'll hear more about his story later. I prepared for today early in the week before the atrocity that happened in Christchurch. And although persecution of the kind that we're talking about this morning and acts of terrorism like last Friday's aren't quite the same thing, there's a common strand in both of them. It's the tendency to collectivise, to see the other not as a human being in their own right, but as a faceless member of a group that you've chosen to hate. You can't wipe out families in a place of worship, or herd them into gas chambers, or terrorise them out of their homes unless you've already decided that their lives aren't worth as much as yours and the people you belong to. As Christians, we need to resist that thinking with every fibre of our being. Because the Scriptures teach us that every human being is made in God's image, and that Christ died for all, not just some. And so we resist every inclination to collectivise and lump the world into simple categories of us and them. Even if that's the game the world's playing. It's not our game. We are called to be more than that. And we condemn every act of terror or persecution against any member of the human family. Because whatever our differences, the victims are people just like us, people loved by God, who bleed red when you cut them. So today we stand with the victims of Christ Church and with their families, and we pray for an end to the hatred that makes such things happen. At the beginning of this series on the 7 churches, I said that each of them, as they're written to in Revelation, gets an affirmation, a correction, a warning, and a promise. But strictly speaking, that's not quite true. Laodicea and Sardis don't get any affirmation, while Philadelphia and Smyrna don't get any correction. Jesus knows the hardship that these last 2 congregations are enduring, and all he wants to do is to strengthen and encourage them. I know, he says, seeing their suffering. I know. When you're struggling, it can mean a lot to hear those words from somebody, but only if it's someone who's gone through what you are going through. In the mouth of anyone else, those words could end up sounding a bit trite and insincere. It's probably better not to say them at all if you don't have comparable experience. Because the truth is, you don't know. And you shouldn't pretend that you do. But Jesus knows. He knows suffering, affliction, poverty, and slander. He wants the church in Smyrna to know that they are one with him in this. And in him, they are rich. Not rich in the world's sense, rich in spirit. Rich in faith. As I was thinking about this, I remembered a wonderful passage in 2 Corinthians where the Apostle Paul, who went through a heck of a lot in his ministry, is defending his apostolate against those who would accuse him in that church. And it's worth quoting what he says in full. He says, as servants of God, we commend ourselves in every way, in great endurance, in troubles, hardships and distresses, in beatings, imprisonments and riots, in hard work, sleepless nights and hunger, in purity, understanding, patience and kindness, in the Holy Spirit and in sincere love, in truthful speech and in the power of God, with weapons of righteousness in the right hand and in the left, through glory and dishonour, bad report and good report, genuine yet regarded as impostors, known yet regarded as unknown, dying and yet waiting on, beaten and yet not killed, sorrowful yet always rejoicing, poor yet making many rich, having nothing and yet possessing everything. Having nothing and yet possessing everything. What an amazing thing to be able to say in the face of that kind of hardship. I know I've said it many times before, but it's worth repeating. Faith in Christ isn't a talisman that wards off difficulties. God never promises us a way around our troubles, but what he does promise us time and time again is to help us find a way through them. Jesus doesn't tell the Christians in Smyrna that nothing bad's going to happen to them because they love him. It's quite the opposite. He's warning them that trouble is just around the corner. People are going to start stirring things up against them again. And we might need to take care of some of the language that's used here. Synagogue of Satan is a strong phrase, and we need to understand that it's not a blanket condemnation of all Jews. It's a particular barb aimed at those within the Jewish community who are hell-bent on creating trouble for the Christians in Smyrna. Synagogue literally means gathering, and Satan in the Hebrew means the one who accuses. It's a cabal of accusers plotting against the church that Jesus has in mind here, not the whole Jewish community, just those who are about the devil's work for him. They're going to stir up trouble. You're going to get thrown into prison. Some of you might even die, he tells them. But stay faithful to the end, and you will receive the crown of life. This life is only the preface, Jesus is saying. And whatever they do to you in the body, they can't steal your soul. It's safe in my keeping. You are safe in my keeping. I wonder what you picture when Jesus uses that phrase about the crown of life. Something in gold or silver maybe, with lots of precious stones, something like this. There's a word for that kind of crown in the Greek. It's the word diadema, from which we get the word diadem. But the word Jesus uses here to the church in Smyrna is the word Stephanos, where we get the name Stephen from. And the Stephanos is a different kind of crown. It's the laurel wreath that was placed on the heads of athletes who triumphed in the games. You don't get the Stephanos because you were born into the right family and happen to have the right bloodline. You get it because you trained and endured and proven yourself worthy of it. You earn it through your commitment. Towards the end of his life, Paul wrote to his protege Timothy to encourage him as a young pastor. And knowing that his time was short, he said these words. He said, "The time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me in that day, and not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearing." I'm about to die, he's saying. But there's something ahead of me. The best is yet to come. What Paul brings to his hearers, and Jesus through John brings to his churches, is that eternal perspective. As Paul says elsewhere, we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Every now and again you meet someone who really lives that out. They won't seem remarkable, at least not until you get to know them. But it's the way they approach life that makes them stand out from the crowd. They love this world, they enjoy its blessings to the full. But possessions don't seem to have much of a grip on them. They hold what they have very lightly because they're focused on what's unseen rather than what's seen. When difficulties arise, they don't seem to lose their inner poise. They face up to the problems, they acknowledge its reality, but they don't let it consume them or their peace. Because they're focused on what's unseen, what's eternal. And when the worst happens, when illness visits them, or misfortune, or even the threat of death itself, they face those things not with stony-faced stoicism, but with the confidence that God is still with us in these things and lies beyond these things. They're focused on what's unseen,
and what's eternal. I wish I knew more of that faith, I have to tell you. How do people become like that? So trusting and so accepting of God, even in the face of difficult circumstances. It all boils down to one thing, I think. Staying close enough to Him to see the things that happen from His eternal perspective. Is there something going on in your life just now that threatens to overwhelm you? It's become the dominant narrative that you're living out of. Whatever it is, chances are you don't have a choice about going through it. What you do have a choice about is how you react to it, where you choose to fix your eyes. And when we find the courage to look beyond what's seen to what's unseen, it's astonishing what the human spirit can achieve, even in suffering. In February 2015, 21 men were beheaded on a beach by Libyan Islamic State terrorists. Initial reports said that all the men were Coptic Christians from small villages in Egypt. But when the footage came out, there was one face among them all that didn't fit that profile. A black man who was later identified as Matthew Ayerga. Friends recognised him from the video and the photographs of the execution. Matthew was from Chad in Africa and had been captured by IS militants a few weeks earlier. Although he wasn't a Christian, he was marched out with the rest of the prisoners, made to kneel, and given the opportunity to convert to Islam and save his life. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to do so. But seeing the calm faith and the courage of the men that he was kneeling alongside, Matthew made his costly choice. "Do you reject Christ?" his captor asked him. "Their God is my God," Matthew said. Words that sealed his fate in this world, but won him the crown of life in the next. Suffering comes in this life. But for those who trust in Christ, it never has the last word. The one who speaks from among the lampstands always has the last word, because he is the last word. The Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of all things. The one who conquered death. And he is with us. Amen. Thanks be to God for his word. We're going to continue in our worship now as our offerings are uplifted. is number 52, Because He Lives.
Let us pray. Loving Heavenly Father, as we reflect on your scripture and message for today, we bring before you all those who suffer persecution for their faith. Whilst many Christians are killed every month for their faith, millions more suffer persecution on a routine basis. We praise and thank you that although many of these believers live with poverty and persecution, yet they are spiritually rich. Please pray that these believers will not only stay committed to the call of Christ, but also will respond in love to the evil shown by their aggressors. We pray that you would open the eyes and soften the hearts of those who bring abuse upon Christians. Remember that you sent your Son for the whole world, and that you do not want anyone, even these individuals, to perish. And so we pray too for those of all faiths, Christian and non-Christian, who suffer persecution, whether from atheists or other faith groups. And we pray especially today for those killed and injured in Friday's attack on the 2 mosques in New Zealand. May they know your love and care for them. Almighty God, we pray that you would comfort the families of those who are persecuted, who many times do not receive updates about their loved one and are not allowed to visit, or it's simply not safe to do so. We pray that they too will remain faithful to the calling God has placed on their lives. And we pray that you would stir the hearts of world leaders so that they would not only plan, but enact the necessary policies and procedures to make a lasting global difference to persecution. Heavenly Father, in these uncertain times in our own country, we would ask for wisdom and grace for our leaders, that they would consider the wider implications of their political decisions on all members of society, and not just those in positions of power and influence. Lord Jesus, although most of us have little experience of persecution, we can still find ourselves in difficult situations in our life, whether through illness, bereavement, or other troubles that cause us to be anxious. Help us to keep close to you so that we can draw strength and hope from your eternal love and care for us. Dear Lord, strengthen our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, and let that faith lead us to love other people just as Christ loves us. May we be always prayerful, always asking God to give us spiritual insight so that we can grow in our knowledge of Him and His love. Let us be filled with hope and point to the rich and glorious inheritance that God bestows on us. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Thanks, Caroline. Well, morning, boys and girls. I'm going to speak to you just a wee second. Before then, a couple of bulletins. The prayer meeting is going to be on Tuesday at 7:30 at its usual time, but not its usual place, because the good news is work in the boiler has started. The vestry's in chaos just now. So if you intend to come to the prayer meeting on Tuesday, be in touch with me and I'll let you know when it's going to be. We haven't arranged a venue yet. And the other thing to say is that I'm part of a group within the Presbytery of Gordon. We've been arranging talks, and we intend to do 3 talks a year called Tim Talks. Again, these are a bit like TED Talks. These are Tim Talks, Theology, Imagination and Ministry. And this next one is coming up this Thursday, 7:30 in Kemnay Church. Going to be 3 short talks, about 10 minutes each, with time for discussion and reflection afterwards, and then a plenary where we can speak about the issue, the question of discipleship. What does it mean to be a disciple in today's world? What are the core things that are involved in being a disciple? I would encourage you, if you have the time, to come along, find out a wee bit more, hear about some resources that we can use in our congregations, and especially encourage my elders to come along to that if they're free. This Thursday, 21st, 7:30 in Kemnay Church. So those are all the announcements. So take a wee chat, boys and girls. How are you doing today? Yeah. You alright? Good. Are you managing? I'm sorry that you're out of here whenever we're having to have church in here. Are you managing okay? Yeah. You alright? Some of you at the porta cabin? And there's some of you in here. Is it warm enough? Yes, good. I know there's maybe not as much room to kind of move around, so hopefully, we're kind of hoping that next Sunday we might even be back in the church, so we're not sure, but work on the assumption that we're in the church, and if we're not, we'll just reconvene in here again, but we're making progress with the boiler. Now, I know some of you who go to Belhelvie Primary have been very busy this week, haven't you? What's been happening at Belhelvie Primary? Hunter? Red Nose Day. Yes, so what have you been doing for Red Nose Day, Andy?
We've been making Red Nose Day snacks.
So there's been Red Nose Day snacks, yeah.
And on Red Nose Day there's some things around the P2, P1s and the other tiny tasks.
So lots Lots of classes have been involved in doing things. It's been a really busy week in the life of Belhelvie Primary. Erin, what have you been doing? Sponging teachers. Why didn't anybody tell me about that? That would have been great fun. That would have been great fun. Did you sponge somebody? Are they going to get revenge on you? No? Who did you sponge? Okay, Mr. Ford, the head teacher, was getting sponged. I like the sound of that. Pay attention, any of you are teachers. Yes? Okay, you just have a better too. A red-nosed hunt. You're hunting for red noses. Good. So what's the point of all these things? What are you trying to do? Why are you doing all these things? Evan, do you know? Why are we doing all these things? You're not sure? Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to you if you remember. Yes. Joshua.
To raise money.
To raise money? For me? Who's for? For charity. That's right, for charity, to help different charities. Did you know what, Marcus? What's yours? Oh, you forgot? If you remember, you whisper it to Mum, and Mum can tell me, okay? You can tell me. Okay. So, we're raising money. We're raising money for charity. Because there's lots of people in the world who aren't as fortunate as we have, and that we don't have all the things that we have, and we want to try and help them as best we can. Now, here's another question, Marcus. Marcus, here's another question. You listening? You thinking? Okay. And I want everybody to think about this one. If you won the lottery, do you know what the lottery is? It's when you can win lots of money. If you won the lottery, and you won, there was a jackpot this week, I think it was 60 million quid. What would you do if you won the lottery? Hands up, hands up, hands up. What would you do if you won the lottery? Evan, what would you do? If you had lots of money, what would you get? You can't remember, Hunter. What would you do? You would give. Wow! That's the answer I was hoping to get to right at the end. Brilliant! That's great. If you got one, what would you do, Marcus?
When I was walking and I saw something, I saw a lady with a dog.
Yes.
And he said they could talk something. He said he's got a toy. So I was calling it for a dog.
Right, so you met someone who was walking their dog and then they did something for the dog. That's fun. That was a kind thing to do, wasn't it? Did you throw it very far? Did you do a good throw? Good man.
I thought that
Show me. Very far. Excellent. Back to the lottery. If you were to win the lottery, what would you buy? Yes, Deb. What? A house. Any old house. Would you buy a super house? Would you spend your money by making a house like Mr. Incredible and the Incredibles with all this fancy stuff and rockets that come up from the end? Yeah. Anything else? What would you do? A mansion, not just a house, a mansion. What would you do, Andy? I saw that. Well, many schools did really well. You raised lots of money for charity. We're thinking about what you would spend the money on if you had a big win on the lottery. What kind of things would you buy? So houses, anything? Would you just buy houses? Is that all you would do? No. What else would you do? I can't believe you're finding it so difficult to answer. What would you do? Wow, buy a fancy car. Would anybody have a holiday? Would anybody like to travel and see the world? Would anybody like to speak to Elon Musk so that whenever he finally gets, or is it Richard Branson, when he finally gets his plane so he can walk to and actually get out of orbit and see the night sky and come back down and travel into space? Anybody fancy a shot of that? No. You guys lack imagination. Come on. If you had £1 million, you could do so much with it. Couldn't you? Hunter, right away, gave a really interesting answer, and it was talked about here too. Some of you are saying, I don't give a lot of it away. easy to say when you don't have it. But if you did have it, and you were to give a lot away, that would be something else, wouldn't it? That would be great. I want to show you a picture. This is a couple, and they're called Ray and Barbara. And Ray and Barbara won $7.5 million on the lottery back in 2000. I think that's Sheffield. Is that Sheffield United? Must be Sheffield United. So they won $7.5 million. And Barbara said that by the end of that day, when they knew that they'd won the money, they'd already worked out that they wanted to give most of it away. Because she said, you know, we're in our 60s, we've done lots of stuff in life. There's not, you know, we can't spend that amount of money in the time that remains to us, so we don't want to. We want to try and get it away. And they did some amazing stuff. They supported 17 different local charities, including some of the hospitals. They bought big bits of equipment for the hospitals. They bought 30 TV sets for the local hospice. A hospice is a place where people go who probably aren't going to get better. It's just to help them to pass away in comfort and support. They bought 30 television sets for the hospice. For 6 years, they bought pantomime tickets for an entire school in a poor area so that these kids who wouldn't get to go to the panto otherwise got to go to the panto every year for 6 years. They paid for 15 war veterans to visit Italy for the 60th anniversary of a huge battle called the Battle of Monte Cassino, when their group fundraising didn't go well and they didn't have enough money. And when the local youth club was vandalised, they gave money away to help buy them new equipment, and the list goes on and on and on. And Barbara said that part of the fun in giving money away was the pleasure that she got from it. She said it's like when you give somebody a Christmas present and you watch them open it and they think it's absolutely wonderful. Well, we get that all the time when we're able to give people bits of money to help. But then she said something really interesting. She said, winning the lottery changed our lives, but it didn't change who we are as people. Winning the lottery changed our lives, but it didn't change who we are as people. It didn't change who we are inside. And I think, boys and girls, that's a really important message to keep hearing. What matters in life isn't really what you have. It's what you are. It's what kind of person you're becoming. It's not about what's outside that really matters. It's about what's inside that really matters. I have a wee story to tell you that illustrates that. And it's a story about a monk, a holy man, who was travelling around the country, and he came into a village. And as he approached the village, this guy came tearing out of the village to him. He said, give me the stone! Give me the stone! And the monk said, what do you mean, give you the stone? I had a dream last night, and an angel appeared to me, and the angel told me that today I would meet a monk coming into the village, and that he would give me a stone that would make me rich beyond my wildest dreams. And the monk thought for a minute, oh yeah, I think I know what you mean. I was sleeping in a cave last night at the foot of the mountains, and in the back of the cave I saw this big stone, and I thought, oh, that looks nice. And I put it in my rucksack. And I brought it out, and he showed it to the guy. It was the biggest rough diamond he'd ever seen. It was huge, it was about. And the monk said, well, you can have it if you want it. And the guy goes, yes, he knew this thing was worth millions, gazillions of pounds. And so the guy ran back into the village, clutching his stone, yes, this is brilliant, this is brilliant. But as he lay in bed that night, holding his precious rough diamond, he couldn't get to sleep. And he tossed and he turned and he tossed and he turned for ages. And finally, he got up out of bed and he wandered through the village till he found the monk sleeping under a tree. And he shook him by the shoulder. He said, wake up. What is it? Said the monk. And the guy said, I want you to give me the inner riches. Make it possible for you to give away this stone. Get it? I want you to give me the inner riches and make it possible for you to give away this stone. The guy was saying, how come you're not bothered about this stone? How come you're not, oh, this is great, I can buy all this stuff? Because the monk didn't let the stone have a hold on him. He wasn't worried about the things outside. He was worried about what was inside and what kind of person he was becoming. And I think that's a really good lesson, boys and girls. There's so much about life that always seems to go, you've got to have the right this, the right that, the right. Don't worry about that stuff. It's about what you're like inside that really matters. That's what you're looking at. We're going to finish with one last song, and it's number 565. How can I keep from singing?
To love and to serve the Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you all, now and forevermore.